Welcome to the second day of the conference on Mahabharata and Inter-Asian culture, transmission, adaptation, performance, and history.
So, good morning once again from IGNCA and from me. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Vinita Srivastava, Mrs. Vinita Srivastava, who's the Joint Secretary of IGNCA. You'll be surprised to know that she's from the railways and is a mechanical engineer and has joined recently, and we see a lot of changes happening. So I think culture is a kind of a thing which is in air. We talked about lived cultures, and then to have someone coming from mechanical engineering and getting into culture and immediately making changes towards it makes it understand that culture lives within all of us, and it's not a heritage museum tradition as we discussed about Mahabharata yesterday. And she would be introducing IGNCA to you, and we all look forward to that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Molly Kaushal. They say that the creative adult is the child who survived. And so both Molly and I have to deal every day with wonderful surviving children, as they say in this institute. It's a part of the job. And it's my privilege here to welcome all of you and to introduce this institute to you. I must apologize for any errors right from the start because I've joined here in February. But in the brief time that I've spent here, I've learned to value whatever this institute has to offer. So there's the little PowerPoint I put together, just 4 slides. Introducing IGNCA. It's an autonomous trust under the aegis of the Ministry of Culture in the Government of India. That, by the way, is the uglier building at the other end of the campus. This is the old Lutyens bungalow, and also we have Gautam here. Please do sit down, Gautam. He is the head of the other Lutyens building, which is the Media Center. So we have these 2 lovely white architectural masterpieces and a larger concrete monster at the other end. So the Vedic Heritage Portal right at the top is going to be launched soon. So hopefully by the end of this year, you'll have on your mobiles a little app which lets you look at every shloka, the Sanskrit text, the transliteration. And it's been 2 years in the making, so we're very excited about this work which is going on here. We have the Kalanidhi and the Kalakosh. Both are libraries, collections, the research publications. That's in the other building. We have the Janpad Sanpada. All of you know about it, and Molly heads it. There's the Kala Darshan, which is supposed to organize all the festival that you see on our lawns, this particular function, the hall booking. It's basically to showcase and to transform the research that IGNCA does into visible forms. There's also the Cultural Informatics Division, so that they're modern technological tools of documentation. What you see on top there is the manuscript of the Geet Govind along with its beautiful illustrations. This center was conceptualized in 85, it was established in 87. We're supposed to document manuscripts, texts, and spoken traditions, basically arts in all its forms. We have to have audiovisual archives of the art, and culture and festivals and fairs across India. And until 2009, we were formally maintaining the intangible cultural history inventory for the country. Now this work is spread across more units other than IGNCA also. And the route to nominating these to the UNESCO for the world to remember as in memory of the world is through IGNCA until a few years back. So we also reach out through regional centers and collaboration. We We have 3 operational centers in Banaras, in Bangalore, a new one in Guwahati, and we hope to open several more. There's a sampling of the April 2017 activities at IGNCA right outside on the lawns outside this hall. You see the Festival of Places. It's a collaborative exhibition. It celebrates people, places, and memories in 3 cities, Delhi, Calcutta, and Lucknow. There's an international conference coming up for teachers as storytellers in a few days from now. And there's an ongoing cultural exhibit, that line which is cut. It's on Hanuman, the images beyond imagination. There will be an installation which is composed totally of small bells, and they'll ring each hour. And again, it's in the uglier building, but it makes it beautiful for some time. And there's also the covered and an exhibition of jewelry associated with the Lord. I hope some of you can enjoy that when you visit here next. This is my personal favorite. After I joined here in February, on 8th March, there was this beautiful function. There were curated performances from women who have entered the local musical tradition in Maharashtra. That's the Kranti Geet, the lady in blue. Very impressive if you see her. The Harikatha of Andhra in the center from Umaji, and the Bowls of Bengal, the last. And with Malini Avasthi chairing the function, we had a sort of a musical parikrama of the whole of the country. And it was a beautiful day with lots of interesting and engaging seminars and talks as well. We do work in between all these legislations. My first task was to list all the legislations related to art and culture in this country. But IGNCA is unique as it executes the documentation and whatever's intangible and not really done exclusively by Sangeet Natak or Lalit Kala or the archives. So we sort of, how art and culture touches lives is a lovely multidisciplinary mandate of this institute. That's all the upcoming activities as well. Every year in Children's Day we have a storytelling which is very popular. The Festival of Places is ongoing. So thank you so much for patiently listening to the introduction. I welcome you all. We'd love this auditorium to be used as often as possible. What we have at IGNC is a lot of research, a lot of work, but we don't have that important interaction between students and teachers and a regular classroom kind of discipline going on. So any collaboration with the university will certainly enrich our efforts. It's my privilege now to introduce Dr. Gopa Sabarwal. Welcome, ma'am. She received her PhD in sociology from the Department of Sociology at the Delhi School of Economics. She had research on ethnic groups and concepts of ethnicity in the Indian context. She also went on to found the Department of Sociology at LSR, Lady Shri Ram College, in 1993. Her research interests focus on ethnic groups in India, visual anthropology, and the history of society. From 2010 to 2016, she's also been the founding VC of Nalanda University. So, no ma'am, your founding days aren't over yet, I hope. She's charged with the responsibility of giving shape to the vision of establishing Nalanda for the 21st century. I welcome her to give her.
Morning, everybody. Well, my talk was tentatively titled The Mahabharata Narrative Locating the Story of Jarasandha or Magad. Are myths a matter of faith alone, or is there a link between myths and landscape where they are located? Some scholars, of course, may take the view that myths, especially religious myths, are a matter of faith alone. But clearly, beginning with the epic Mahabharata, we see that a mapping of a sacred geography of gods and goddesses seems to be the norm, a practice that further intensified in the medieval period. It has been suggested that this conjunction between religion and geography may be linked to an evolving awareness of India as a cultural, religious, and geographical unity. And it has been argued, among others by Hegarty, that the Mahabharata sought, at least in part, to replace religious ritual with religious narrative as the culturally preferred and empowered activity in early South Asia. Narratives encompass a vision of place and time within which and through which events unfold. By incorporating a narrative of place, scholars believe that the Mahabharata is privileging a particular form of discourse while simultaneously seeking to take command of space and time. Hegarty goes so far as to say that Tirtha narratives in the Mahabharata as a whole are then conceptualized as being capable of themselves functionally replacing Tirtha visitation, which itself was capable of functionally replacing Vedic ritual activity. Diana Eck, whose work on what she termed Imagined Landscapes, a play on Benedict Anderson's 1983 work titled Imagined Communities, reiterates this view of the myth and the landscape having an intricate interaction, where in the Indian context, the myth takes place in thousands of sites in the culturally created mental map of Bharat. What Eck has also pointed out is that this imagined landscape in India is polycentric with multiple centers of sacredness, a fact with Western scholars, used to the singular uniqueness of Mecca and Jerusalem, found difficult to comprehend. Eck points out that even all the groups termed Hindu do not subscribe to one imagined landscape. This includes regional, tribal, religious, and other sectarian groups. Add to this the imagined landscapes of other religions that emerged in India, namely Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, and also the imagined communities of Islam and Christianity. This results in multiple and overlapping imagined landscapes, some of which, being dynamic sites, could be claimed by more than one group, resulting in the viewers having to comprehend the competing understandings and uses of space. This has been very clearly demonstrated in the multiple uses and imaginings of what are termed as Buddhist images by Hindus in Bodh Gaya and other Buddhist sites in Bihar, a point I will return to later. Bodh Gaya has become a clear, it's been very well documented by historians who work on multiple usage of the same site. What seems to stand out about placial linkages in the Mahabharata and henceforth is that they tend to have an element of sacred attached to them. The Mahabharata concept of sacred, as I've said above, was indicative of sites where often great ritual or ascetic acts had been performed in the past or were now going to be performed. I'm going to focus today on one narrative in the story of the Mahabharata and its associated landscape. This narrative is centered in Rajgir, district Nalanda, Bihar, one of the most important early historic sites in India. Rajgir was the original or the first capital of Magad, the kingdom which expanded into the first Pan-Asian state, and is regarded as one of the earliest examples of early urban processes in India. Our story begins with the king Brihadrat, the founder of the Brihadrat dynasty of Magad, with Girirajpur or present-day Rajgir as his capital. He was regarded as a great hero and married the twin princesses from Kashi or Varanasi and vowed to them that he would never show partiality to either of them. The famed king was unable to have children. He retreated to the forest where he served a sage named Chandra Koshika or Koshika, who, on discovering his sorrowful longing for a child, while he was contemplating how to help out this king, had a mango fall into his lap. He gave it to the king with the blessing, "Take it, your wish will be fulfilled." The sage did not know that the king had two wives. The king went home and, following his principle of not being partial to either wife, he cut the fruit into two halves and gave one to each wife. Sometime after they had partaken the fruit, the wives became pregnant. The delivery took place in due course, but instead of bringing the expected joy, it plunged them into greater grief than before, for they each gave birth to but half a child. These two lifeless forms were horrifying to view, and they were two equal but complementary portions of one baby, consisting of one eye, one leg, or half a face, etc. Brihadrat ordered these to be thrown into the forest. The attendants did as they were instructed. A demoness named Jara found these two pieces and held each of these in her two palms. As she gathered them up, accidentally the halves came together the right way and adhered together and changed into a whole living child, perfect in every detail. Not having the heart to eat a living child, the demoness gave it to the king, and explained to him what had happened. The father named the boy Jarasandha, literally meaning one joined by Jara. The child, Jarasandha, grew up into a man with immense physical strength, but his body had one weakness, namely that being made up by the fusion of two separate parts, it could be split again into two if sufficient force were used. Jarasandha grew up and he became king in due course. His daughters Asti and Prapti were married then to the heir apparent of Mathura, Kams. Well known is the fact that Kans was later killed by Krishna in Mathura to avenge all the wrong that Kans had perpetrated. Jarasandha was naturally enraged with Krishna and the entire Yadav clan on his two daughters being widowed. Jarasandha attacked Mathura and the Yadavs 17 times. One such attack included other armies of the Panchalas and the Kurus. While Krishna and the Yadavs survived the attacks, Krishna, on sensing danger to Mathura, relocated his capital city from Mathura to Dwarka. The flight to Dwarka led to Krishna acquiring the name Ranchor, meaning deserter of the war field. Krishna, which was not a very good title to have. So Krishna, of course, was always looking for an opportunity to slay Jarasandha. In the meantime, the Pandavas were ruling Indraprasth, where it was suggested that Yudhishthira should perform the Rajasuya sacrifice and assume the title of emperor. Yudhishthira sought Krishna's advice in this matter. To assume the title, Yudhishthira said, only one who can secure and respect the allegiance of all kings can win the status of emperor. Krishna told Yudhishthira that he cannot become emperor while Jarasandha of Magad is alive and unconquered. Jarasandha will certainly oppose Yudhishthira assuming the title of emperor. The only way to overcome his opposition is to defeat and kill him. You can then not only perform the Rajasuya, but also rescue and win the adherence of the kings who languish in his prisons. I'll come to that in a minute, because Jarasandha was planning to conduct a yagna of his own to please the goddess Chandi, and he had imprisoned 95 kings and needed 5 more kings so that he could sacrifice 100 people. And he thought that sacrifice would ultimately let him to conquer the Yadav army. Krishna advised that now that other allies of Jarasandha like Kans and Hidimbaka and Hamsa were no more, he is isolated and this is the right time to kill him. It is useless to fight with armies. He must be provoked to a single combat and slain. According to the code of honor in those days, a Kshatriya had to accept the challenge to a duel, whether with or without weapons. And the hand-to-hand combat was a fight to death. And this was the strategy that Krishna thought would work well in the recourse for slaying Jarasandha. Krishna, Bhim, and Arjun then disguised themselves as men who had taken religious vows, clad in robes of bark fiber, and carrying the holy darba grass in their hands, and they entered the kingdom of Magad and arrived at the capital of Jarasandha. Jarasandha received them with respect, as their noble bearing seemed to indicate an illustrious origin. Bhim and Arjun made no reply to his words of welcome because they wished to avoid having to tell any lies. Krishna spoke on their behalf. These two are observing a vow of silence as part of their austerities. They can speak, therefore, only after midnight. So Jarasandha entertained them. He was a very gracious king, apparently, and very respectful to people of, who were considered religious saints or men of learning. And he would give a lot of alms and things to people. So it was the practice of Jarasandha to meet noble guests who had taken vows and talk to them at their leisure and convenience, and so then he called them at midnight to see them. Their conduct made Jarasandha suspicious, and he observed that they had on their hands the scars made by bowstring, and they had the proud bearing of Kshatriyas. When Jarasandha demanded the truth of them, they said frankly, "We are your foes and we seek instant combat. You can choose which one of us you will fight." After acquainting himself as to who they were, Jarasandha said, "Krishna, you are a cowherd, Arjuna is a mere boy, Bhim is famous for his physical strength, so I wish to fight for him." Since Bhim was unarmed, Jarasandha chivalrously agreed to fight him without weapons. They fought each other continuously for 13 days without taking rest or refreshments, while Krishna and Arjuna looked on, both with hope and anxiety. On the 14th day, Jarasandha showed signs of exhaustion, and Krishna prompted Bhima that the time had come to make an end of him. At once, Bhima lifted him and, whirling him around and round 100 times, dashed him to the earth, and seizing his legs, tore his body asunder into two halves. As Bhim roared in exultation, thinking he had won, the two halves at once joined, and Jarasandha, made whole, leapt into the battle again. Bhim was quite aghast at this. When he saw Krishna pick up a straw, tear it in two, and cast the bits in opposite directions, Bhim took the hint and once again tore Jarasandha and threw the two portions in opposite directions, so they could not come together and join. Thus did Jarasandha meet his end. The captive princes were all released, and Jarasandha's son was crowned the king of Magad. And of course, Krishna, Bhim, and Arjun returned to Indraprasth. All 95 kings later fought on the side of the Pandavas in the Mahabharata war. With Jarasandha gone, the way was now clear for Yudhishthira to assume the title of emperor, which he then proceeded to do. This brings to an end the story of Jarasandha. I know it was a very potted story, and I'm looking at Naina Dayal, who is looking either seriously or completely bemused, and since she is the expert on the Mahabharata, I wonder what she thought of my version of the story, but this was just to get you acquainted with the story. So now this, with the end of the story, I mean, what I was going to say is this brings to an end the mention of Jarasandha in the Mahabharata and any mention of Rajgir in the Mahabharata. But if you were to travel to Rajgir today and you took a walk around Rajgir, you could locate sites identified as they are on the map with Jarasandha's Baitak, or the throne of Jarasandha, and his wrestling pit or akhara, where he used to wrestle, and the Ranbhumi, which is the site of his death. There's also in Rajgir the temple of Jaradevi, which doesn't much have an image inside. I think all it has is a piece of stone, which doubles up as the goddess. Rajgir has 5 hills. It's enclosed within 5 hills, and those hills have a very impressive cyclopean wall. It's a very broad wall made of undressed stone. There's no masonry involved. And one part of the cyclopean wall near the western valley near Jethian, has also been termed as the Jarasandha Bandh. So therefore, if we looked at the geography of the landscape of present-day Rajgir, we would find various sites associated with Jarasandha imprinted on that landscape. I have some pictures which I can go to. This is what Jarasandha ki Baitak looks like. It's a high. It's on the foot of what are called the Vaibhara hills, and there's 2 Baitaks actually, one on Vaibhara and one on Giryak hill, about 75 meters above the hot spring. This is the imposing stone structure. It's kind of squarish. It has again massive unhewn. It's got big pieces of stone that are just placed one on top of the other. It has been observed. One of the archaeologists who looked at it, Buchanan, had said, if not disturbed, it may remain till the day of judgment, which was something that later, I think scholars kind of built on to say how the Cyclopean wall had lasted so long. This is apparently the place where Jarasandha used to sit after bathing in the Saraswati stream that runs below. I'll come back first to the main image. If you can see towards the bottom, you can see a few, these kind of spaces. These are actually small cave-like. These are small cave-like structures in the Betak. This is one of those. And this is, of course, a closer look with the stone and with the boards telling you that it is Jarasandh ka Betak. So the small caverns at the base, which are regarded as caves by subsequent explorers, there's, of course, a debate whether these are shelters for, I'm going back to the single one, because I'll come back to that, whether these were shelters for the gods or as the Buddhist tradition later said, these were meditating cells for the Buddhists and for the Buddha himself. It may also be noticed that the stones used to build these have been carefully selected with a slab-like oblong stone acting like a lintel. This structure in Buddhist literature is also referred to as the Pipala stone house. It's mentioned in both Xuanzang and Faxian's descriptions of Rajgir. Okay, apart from the Betak, we have Jarasandh ka Akhara, which is the famous wrestling area. Again, it's a stone mason platform fashioned much like the Cyclopean wall. It runs, which goes over all 5 hills. It's approached through a flight of well-preserved stairs from the north along the platform's longer axis, 11 meters long, 8 meters wide, and a height of 2.4 meters from the ground. I'll show you some other images of the Akhara from on top. So this is, okay, I'll come back to the Jara Devi temple in a minute. So, and I may as well finish showing you everything. So this is the Jara Devi temple as it looks right now. It's had a new coat of pink paint. Few years ago when when I first visited it, it looked a little bit more like this. So it's been cleaned up, and so clearly, maybe one of the things that we were trying to do, the School of History at Nalanda at one point, is keeping a living archive of Rajgir to see what develops and how things develop. And I think even in the 6 years that the university has been there, one of the things that does emerge about landscape is that it is dynamic, and I don't think anybody should try and control it in a sense. So newer religious places are coming up, older ones are being acquired. This is the whole part of the, a landscape that is both dynamic and has multiple narratives on it. All right. The picture I'm not showing you is very close to the Akhara, is another area called the Ranbhumi, or the site of the actual fight between Bhima and Jarasandh, which has red earth. Now, of course, the geologists will tell you it's red laterite earth, but the local tradition is that so much blood was spilled that it has forever been red, and so there are no archaeological remains there. It's just a ground, which by the time the archaeologists in the 1800s actually first got to it, had a lot of vegetation around it. So there's nothing there but a piece of land. There is also an area, because I'm going in a off thing, there's also an area which is Bhima's wrestling pit. So there's also a Bhimka Akhara, which they say is where Bhim must have done his general warm-up, I take it, before he engaged in the fight. So there's also in Rajgir a site called the Pandu Pokhar, or the pond where the Pandavas bathed in before entering Rajgir. Pandu Pokhar no longer exists. In the place of Pandu Pokhar, we now have a really modern park with a lake in the center. And the lake has all kinds of adventure games and children's rides and shop, as you can see at the bottom. And it has the Buddha statue placed under one tree in the park. I'll give you one more. And then it has a statue of Pandu. I mean, that is what Pandu is meant to look like, in the middle of what is the Pokhar. So it's now become this lake. So this is clearly one site that has not, been left the way it was. The official documentation of antiquities in Rajgir lists Pandu Pokhar, it lists the small Pokhar, but clearly now it has become this modern day park. Okay. All right. So what is interesting about all of these structures is that not one of the ones that I have now described that pertain to the story of Jarasandh are in the traditional sense tirtha sites and hence not sacred. They are not sites that have lent themselves to any religious or tourist visitation. What they are sites that have just stood untouched and untransformed for centuries. The reason for this, in the dynamic and ever-changing topography of Rajgir Hills, could well be that the structures, as we saw with the Baitak, could have been put to use by subsequent dwellers in the region, namely the Buddhists, who used it as they found it. Or another probable explanation could also be that the myth of Jarasandh traveled not only from the Mahabharata into also the Jain tradition, thus making Jarasandh an important figure in both Hindu and Jain mythology. It must be remembered that Rajgir is home not only to Buddha, but also to the Jain Tirthankar Mahavir, who spent 14 years here and whose place of final rest is some 30 kilometers away from Rajgir in a place called Pavapuri. The Rajgir Hills have many Jain temples, some of them of ancient vintage. So Rajgir clearly has, in that sense, layering of very important, crucial religious sites of both of the latter day religions, both Buddhism and Buddha also spent 14 monsoons in Rajgir, and so did Mahavir. So Jonathan Geen, in an analysis of Krishna and his rivals in the Hindu and Jain traditions, has shown how, and I quote, the Jains conflated characteristics of the Hindu figures Jarasandha, Sisupala, and Pondraka in order to create a new Jarasandh, who was now a single powerful nemesis for Krishna. Second, this new relationship between Krishna and Jarasandh provided the template for a new class of illustrious beings, the Sakal Purushas, in the Jain universal history, the recurring and paradigmatic Vasudevas and the Prati Vasudevas. And third, this evolution of Krishna mythology in Jain tradition may have influenced actually the parallel development in the Hindu tradition, including the creation of the 10 avatars doctrine and the expansion of the Puranic mythology surrounding both Jarasandha and Sisupala. I close quote. So essentially what Jonathan Geen is trying to say is that the legend of Jarasandh goes into, and from my point of view, I was only reading text from the Jarasandh point of view, enters the Jain pantheon, and therefore maybe there was no need to alter the usage of the sites that exist in Rajgir, because they were not sacred, but they were part of a historical story, and so they were left untouched. In a lot of other places of worship, what we will see is, Jain temples and Hindu temples may be competing with each other as to, they may have, the same temple may have at one point been Hindu or Jain or vice versa. Similarly, with the disappearance of Buddhism, you will find in many villages, you will find right next to the old Nalanda itself, statues of Buddha which have been taken over by villagers and are being worshipped as a Hindu god or as an avatar of Vishnu. And the modern retelling of the story of Rajgir, which clearly begins in the 1800s with archaeology formally entering the field, was through a kind of lens that is functioning from both the Oriental and the kind of theorizing that happened in the Western world, where you needed to fix the identity of any object that you find, and it could only have one singular identity. And unfortunately, all the archaeologists, I shouldn't use the word unfortunately, all the archaeologists who went into Rajgir had as their guiding documents the document of Xuanzang and Fashan. So clearly they're looking at that as their navigational tool. So the lens through which Rajgir is being read essentially post 1800 is the Buddhist lens. And of course you note all the other things that you find. There's also a Sikh temple in Rajgir because Guru Nanak is supposed to have come to Rajgir at some point. So it's got multi-layered, and then of course with Islam coming in, you have a lot of you have an important Sufi saint there, so you have that layer of history too. So all of these layers obviously came in the middle, post-Buddhism and pre the arrival of formal archaeologists here. But what we have seen is, if you look at records of Rajgir, the attempt is to try and discover the Rajgir of Buddha's times. And clearly, both Fashan and Xuanzang's records talk about some of these structures that I'm talking about today. Because, people have matched it, they've walked the distances, they've tried to identify things. But somewhere along the line, so what we have is the point, I think, in trying to look at some kind of theoretical or way to try and connect all of this, I would say that the Rajgir, so echoing, I can only look at Diana Eck, or then I'm looking at Jacob Kinnard as people who are looking at dynamic spaces. I think Rajgir becomes a very important, a very good illustration of Kinnard's point of places in motion. And Kinnard says, although, he's making the point that I was just trying to make, although the Western Orientalists who have studied space and place in India, in particular, have gone to great length to fix their identities and to demonstrate their origins and thus constitute them discursively and physically as singular and thus fundamentally monosemic, and the spaces themselves, and very often the identities and the people who lay claim to them, are polysemic, dynamic, and fluid. So now I come to an end, which I haven't really written because I've been waiting to find the word. What do I make of all of this? As a sociologist, as somebody who likes going into any new area and doing a social geography of the place that I occupy, to try and see what the place as it is today is telling me about its past and about how people who occupy the space think about these structures. How would we analyze these structures of Jarasan? Now, clearly, they are not part of the sacred imagined community. A lot of the work to do with sites that go with myths are all encompassed in a discourse of sacred geography or a sacred imagining, or as we were talking about, the Tirth. Now, clearly, Jarasan in that concept, in that story, is not a sacred person. And nor have any of the sites that we have mentioned in any sense acquired pilgrimage status of people coming to visit them. What we have here are structures that I would say are probably more in the realm of like forts or other historical structures, but they've been there since. There is a new project that is happening where we're going to now try and map every square inch of Rajgir all over again with another agency in Patna. But that multidisciplinary project may throw up newer ideas. But I think for me, the interest in in trying to put this paper together for this conference was, one, Jarasandha the person and the character in the Mahabharata. I did not go into what more serious Mahabharata scholars would do, which is also look at why somebody like Jarasandha is in the story when he's probably the only person who makes Krishna look human and weak at some point. Of course, there have been some people, it's a theory that has been advanced and may have been, it's been rejected by other scholars, that there may actually be two characters in the Mahabharata. There's the Krishna of Mathura, and then there's the person who's in Dwarka, and you needed a story to link Mathura with Dwarka, and so you needed to find Krishna having to flee Dwarka. Other people have raised the question of, am I done with time? Sorry. With why Krishna, who had the Sudarshan Chakra, the Krishna from Dwarka, is a man who has weapons. Why would he choose to engage in a hand-to-hand combat? But there is apparently one shlok in the Mahabharata which talks about the Yadavas being very good at wrestling and combat, which gives you the entry point for that fight to take place in as a unarmed combat. But I'm not an expert on that, so I don't want to go there. But for me, the interesting point was to find sites that pertain to the Mahabharata, but that are not in any sense of the word transformed into religious sites, but have continued to exist for centuries. I think the challenge for me is to now try and take that to one further step of analysis. But I'll leave you with that thought for the moment. Thank you very much.
For me to thank Gopa for a very... in fact, I think it was very nice to have this paper on the second day, as we started with the text and we came on to living traditions, and then how the myth transforms the landscape itself. And what I think is the new insight into it, that generally when we are mapping epics and landscapes, it's the emphasis is really on the sacred geography, and I think not just Rajgir, all over India we would find that how communities have turned some of their deities into the rulers of those spaces, like we have Hidimba. Also, how these images have been appropriated by Jainism, Buddhism, and other religious sects that may be there, and developed into independent cults. But here we see that the myth is there, the geography is there, and still it doesn't translate into sacred geography. And probably when a mapping happens of Mahabharata sites, these would remain unmapped. So to think of that, what are the reasons that even in cultural memory, certain landscapes associated with same characters turn out to be sacred, and others do not. Others are still in the domain of something else but not sacred. So with these few words, I thank, and I hope that some of the students would start taking up this kind of study of landscapes and myths, and how these landscapes and myths both become mobile, changing over time, transforming perceptions. So thank you very much, and maybe Anjana would like to do a formal thank or something, and then we can go to the plenary session.
Very happy at the opportunity through IGNCA that we got to watch and really feel an amazing performance yesterday of Uttan Thullal by Suresh Kalyarthi. It was just something that I will say will stay with us for a very long time. As we were speaking after the conference, it's not so much what somebody said that stays with you. It's what you felt when somebody said or did or performed something that stays with you. It is also wonderful for us to be in this absolutely beautiful space, which we are happy to know through your Joint Secretary and also from you is underutilized. You will find that we will utilize it.
We'll be very happy.
And it is a great generosity. At the last moment, conversations with Professor Mali Kaushal and I led to this feeling that let's start, instead of working, we are talking about multi-layered narratives of a single space. The way academics have to advance now is that we have to start working together rather than a spirit of contention and separation. And it's very ironical that we are using this means of collaboration. We are starting this moment of collaboration with a text which is anything but a text about working together. But you know, literature walas can do anything with anything. So this is our rewriting of the Mahabharata in our times. So thank you for being here.